In 2025, dating lesbians isn't just about swiping right or knowing a few queer-friendly hangouts. It's about understanding identity, respect, connection, and change. The world has evolved, and so has the dating scene. We're no longer in an era where labels were whispered or connections were limited to underground apps. Today, lesbian dating is bold, visible, intersectional, and yes, sometimes, still confusing. So if you're wondering how to genuinely show up in lesbian relationships in this era, whether you're new to dating women, questioning, or simply curious, you've landed in the right place. Let's start with the truth. Dating lesbians in 2025 means understanding that lesbianism isn't one-dimensional. There is no one way to be a lesbian. From femme to butch, soft mask to stem, stud to non-binary lesbians, identities are vibrant, layered, and personal. Respecting those differences is step one. In this decade, authenticity isn't a bonus, it's the foundation. People are craving deeper emotional intimacy, and that begins with being seen and being safe to be yourself. But here's the twist. While many traditional barriers have been broken, new challenges have emerged. The line between digital connection and real-life chemistry has blurred. Queer dating apps have grown from Hertlex to newer decentralized queer platforms, but so have the risks of ghosting, miscommunication, and performative allyship. Being a good dater in this community isn't just about aesthetics, it's about emotional intelligence and showing up with care. Consent and communication? Non-negotiable. Lesbian relationships have always held a powerful space for emotional depth, but they also require clarity. In 2025, being able to articulate your emotional boundaries, communicate your identity, and actively listen to your partner is just as sexy as a good date night outfit. You can't skip the talk about pronouns, emotional needs, or where you stand with labels like monogamy or polyamory. And speaking of labels, lesbian dating isn't just about cisgender women dating cisgender women. In 2025, it's increasingly common to find trans lesbians, non-binary lesbians, and queer people with complex identities within the lesbian umbrella. If you're dating someone who identifies as a lesbian, it's essential not to assume their journey looks like yours. Dating requires curiosity, not judgment. Let's not forget the cultural shifts, more representation in media, greater visibility in politics and art, but also ongoing discrimination. Yes, we've come far, but lesbian couples still face marginalization, especially in less accepting communities or among families. So if you're stepping into lesbian love, know this. It's a radical, beautiful act of courage. And it deserves your full presence.
Lesbian identity is diverse, don't assume one size fits all. When most people hear the word lesbian, a single image often forms in their minds, usually shaped by media, stereotypes, or limited exposure. But here's the truth, lesbian identity is not a monolith. In 2025, it's more important than ever to understand that lesbianism isn't one size fits all. It's a rich, evolving, deeply personal experience that holds space for many expressions of gender, style, race, body, and background. To truly understand and respect lesbian people, we must let go of outdated assumptions and open ourselves to the beautiful diversity within the lesbian community. A lesbian is typically defined as someone who is romantically or sexually attracted to women, but even that definition has grown more inclusive. Many lesbians identify as cisgender women, but others are trans, non-binary, genderqueer, or gender non-conforming individuals who are still drawn to the feminine. Some prefer to use the label lesbian because of its history, empowerment, or cultural meaning, even if their gender falls outside of the traditional binary. That doesn't make their identity any less valid. It simply shows how human attraction and identity refuse to be boxed in by rigid rules. Visibly, too, there is no single way a lesbian should look. Some lesbians are femme, embracing traditionally feminine aesthetics. Others are butch or mask, choosing styles that are more masculine or androgynous. There are studs, stems, soft butches, lipstick lesbians, and people who don't use any label at all. Some lesbians are loud and proud, others are quiet and private. Each expression is real, and none is more authentic than the other. Expecting a lesbian to fit a certain visual or behavioral mold only flattens the dynamic spectrum of their experiences. Race and culture also shape lesbian identity in profound ways. A black lesbian woman may navigate her identity differently than a white femme lesbian. A South Asian lesbian might face cultural expectations and family pressures that influence how, when, or if she can come out. Queer Indigenous lesbians may carry ancestral identities and traditions that reframe what sexuality and gender even mean. Intersectionality is not just a buzzword, it's a framework that reminds us that each person's identity is shaped by more than one factor. In dating and friendship, it's crucial not to project assumptions. Just because someone identifies as a lesbian doesn't mean you know their pronouns, their gender journey, or how they navigate relationships. Ask respectfully. Listen fully. Let people define themselves on their own terms. And above all, honor that lesbianism is not about performance or conformity, it's about truth, connection, and love. In 2025, the queer world is more visible and multifaceted than ever before. That visibility comes with responsibility. If we want to support, date, or stand beside lesbians, we must recognize that. In 2025, the conversation around pronouns, labels, and boundaries has moved far beyond just being politically correct. It's now a fundamental part of respectful and meaningful human connection, especially within LGBTQ+ spaces. When we talk about dating, particularly in queer communities, we're not just navigating feelings, we're navigating identity. Pronouns aren't preferences, they're pronouncements of truth. They communicate who someone is and how they want to be seen in the world. Ignoring them or getting them wrong without care signals disrespect, even if it's unintentional. Today, asking someone their pronouns isn't awkward, it's a sign of emotional maturity, a basic first step to building trust. Labels, too, have evolved. They're no longer cages, they're tools of empowerment. Whether someone identifies as lesbian, pansexual, non-binary, asexual, transmasc, or something fluid and evolving, each label carries weight, history, and often, a journey of self-discovery. But here's the catch, not everyone needs a fixed label, and some people use them as flexible guides rather than concrete definitions. In dating, assuming someone's identity without listening can cause harm. Taking the time to understand how a person describes themselves, and allowing that definition to grow or change, is one of the most affirming things you can do. And then there are boundaries, often misunderstood, yet deeply vital. In queer relationships, especially lesbian ones, boundaries aren't just about physical touch. They're about emotional pace, gendered language, intimacy expectations, and how public or private someone is with their identity. Some people are out and proud, others are still navigating their space. Some want slow, emotional intimacy before any labels are used, others are clear and intentional from the start. Respecting boundaries doesn't kill romance, it creates the safety in which true connection can thrive. Boundaries aren't walls. They're bridges to deeper understanding when honored correctly. The truth is, the world is still catching up to the nuance of queer love. Misgendering, invalidating someone's label, or pushing past emotional limits aren't just mistakes, they're breaks in trust. And rebuilding that trust takes more than an apology. It takes presence, humility, and the willingness to learn. The people who thrive in dating in 2025 aren't the ones with the best bios or the coolest photos, they're the ones who listen, ask, and never assume. They treat identity with care and recognize that every person is a universe, not a box. So if you're dating today, especially in LGBTQ+ spaces, remember, pronouns aren't optional, labels are personal, and boundaries are sacred. Respect them, and you're not just being woke, you're being real. And in a world that's constantly changing, being real is the most powerful kind of love there is. Dating apps have changed, but not all are safe. In 2025, dating apps are everywhere, not just on our phones, but embedded in our lives. For many people, especially in the LGBTQ+ community, these apps have become the main bridge between isolation and connection. They've revolutionized how we meet, flirt, and even fall in love. But while dating apps have evolved with better features, more inclusive language, and AI-driven matching systems, the truth remains, not all of them are safe. And not all the people on them are who they say they are. Let's be honest, the queer community has long relied on digital spaces to find love, safety, and validation. Apps like Her, Lex, Tammy, and newer platforms designed specifically for lesbian, non-binary, and trans users offer alternatives to heteronormative swiping culture. These spaces are empowering and affirming for many. But as the popularity of these apps grows, so does the risk of exploitation, misrepresentation, and emotional harm. The dangers aren't always obvious. It's not just about predators or bots anymore. It's about subtle manipulation, ghosting patterns, emotional catfishing, and people claiming queer identities without fully respecting the culture or community they're stepping into. In 2025, people are smarter, and so are scams. Fake profiles have gotten more sophisticated. AI-generated selfies, voice-altered audio calls, even video filters that mask identity. Technology can now mimic intimacy, and it's harder than ever to separate the real from the performance. Even legitimate users sometimes present a curated version of themselves, one that doesn't always match who they are in real life. That mismatch can lead to confusion, disappointment, or worse, manipulation. Safety isn't just about meeting in public or sharing your location with a friend, though that still matters. It's about emotional safety, too. Are you being love-bombed by someone who disappears a week later? Are you sharing vulnerable truths with someone who hasn't even shared their real name? Emotional safety now means checking for consistency, boundaries, and real communication. It means understanding that just because someone matches your identity doesn't mean they match your intentions. And let's not ignore the apps themselves. Many of them collect personal data, track your behavior, and use your emotional patterns for profit. Some apps still lack real moderation, allowing hate speech, discrimination, or harassment to go unchecked, especially toward non-binary or trans users within the lesbian dating space. If you're queer, you're not just a user, you're also vulnerable to being exploited by platforms that pretend to be inclusive but fail to protect. So what's the takeaway? Be present, be cautious, and be real. Use apps as tools, not as lifelines. Take your time. Trust your instincts. Ask the questions that matter. Not all dating apps are dangerous, but not all are safe either. In a way. Emotional intelligence, aesthetic vibes. In today's fast-moving, image-driven world, it's easy to get swept up in the allure of aesthetic vibes, the curated Instagram feeds, the perfectly edited dating app profiles, the trendy fashion statements, and the effortless cool. But when it comes to forming deep, lasting relationships, especially in queer spaces like lesbian dating, emotional intelligence outshines all of it. In fact, in 2025, emotional intelligence isn't just attractive, it's essential. While aesthetic appeal might get you noticed, it's emotional maturity that keeps you remembered. Think about it, anyone can learn how to dress well, take good selfies, or say the right lines. But not everyone knows how to sit with uncomfortable feelings, listen without interrupting, or navigate a tough conversation without defensiveness. Emotional intelligence is the ability to recognize, understand, and manage your own emotions, while also being attuned to the emotions of others. And in a romantic context, it becomes the foundation of trust, empathy, and true connection. Aesthetic vibes can spark interest, but emotional intelligence builds intimacy, the kind that doesn't fade when the filter comes off. In lesbian relationships, which often challenge societal norms and involve layers of identity exploration, past trauma, or community pressures, emotional intelligence becomes even more critical. You might meet someone who presents beautifully online or in social settings, but if they lack the ability to emotionally regulate or communicate, the relationship quickly becomes surface level or unstable. On the other hand, someone who's attuned to your needs, who asks thoughtful questions, who owns their mistakes and grows from them, that person becomes unforgettable. Emotional safety is the new sexy. We live in a time where people are learning to unlearn. Many queer individuals are working through internalized shame, family rejection, or past relationship wounds. The partners who stand out aren't the flashiest ones, but the most grounded, those who don't just look good, but feel good to be around. The ones who know how to validate rather than compete, who respond rather than react, who support without needing to fix. That's emotional intelligence in action. And let's be real, aesthetic trends change. Today's hot look is tomorrow's outdated vibe. But emotional maturity only deepens with time. It creates a safe space where real conversations can happen, where both partners feel seen and heard, not judged or compared. That kind of connection outlasts any fashion trend or viral TikTok moment. So, in a world where it's easy to fake a vibe but hard to fake character, choose the people who show up with presence, not performance. Invest in partners who ask how you feel, not just how you look. In 2025, and always, emotional intelligence isn't just greater than aesthetic vibes, it's what makes love real. Intersectionality shapes every relationship. In today's world, understanding love requires more than romance and attraction, it demands awareness. At the heart of every relationship lies a series of experiences that shape how we connect, communicate, and build trust. This is where intersectionality comes in. Coined by legal scholar Kimberly Crenshaw, intersectionality refers to how different aspects of a person's identity, such as race, gender, class, sexuality, ability, and more, interact and overlap to create unique experiences of discrimination and privilege. When we talk about dating or building a relationship, especially within marginalized communities, intersectionality becomes more than just a theory, it becomes personal. Every relationship is influenced by the lived experiences of the people in it. A Black lesbian woman may face racism within queer spaces and homophobia within her cultural community. A disabled trans man may struggle with visibility, not only because of his gender identity but also because of ableist systems that often desexualize or ignore disabled people entirely. When two people come together, they don't meet as blank slates, they bring with them the weight and wisdom of their identities. Recognizing intersectionality allows us to honor that complexity, instead of trying to flatten it for the sake of comfort or convenience. For example, in a queer relationship between a white woman and a woman of color, conversations around privilege aren't optional, they're essential. The dynamics of how society treats each partner differently can affect how safety, voice, and space are negotiated in the relationship. Similarly, when one partner comes from a working-class background and the other from financial privilege, conversations about money, access, and security require more sensitivity and honesty. These differences are not roadblocks. They are opportunities to build relationships rooted in respect and mutual learning. Intersectionality also invites us to reflect on how power shows up in love. Who gets heard more often? Whose emotional needs are prioritized? Who has to code switch to be understood? In emotionally mature relationships, both partners remain aware of the systems that shape their realities. This isn't about guilt or blame, it's about building intimacy through truth. When someone says, "This part of my identity affects how I love," a compassionate partner listens, learns, and adapts, not out of obligation, but out of love. Too often, mainstream relationship advice assumes a level playing field. But intersectionality reminds us that no two people walk through the world the same way. What feels safe, romantic, or even respectful to one person may not feel the same to another. That's why communication, empathy, and cultural humility are the real foundations of love.
So, now that we've traveled through the ups, downs, and real truths of lesbian dating in 2025, you're probably feeling one of two things, either excited for what's possible or slightly overwhelmed by how much there is to actually know. And both feelings are valid. Dating lesbians today isn't just about gender or orientation. It's about integrity. It's about asking the deeper questions. Are you listening when your partner talks about their boundaries? Are you assuming their past or actually asking? Are you ready to be present, even when it's hard, even when the feelings are messy? The truth is, love in the lesbian community has always been about more than just romance. It's about healing. Many queer people are unlearning shame, rebuilding trust, and learning to be seen after years of invisibility. That means dating isn't just fun, it's sacred. You're entering someone's world, their survival, their story. In 2025, What makes someone a good partner isn't whether they know all the labels or wear a rainbow pin. It's whether they know how to listen, how to apologize, how to hold space for someone's full self without trying to change it, shrink it, or label it on their behalf. Lesbian dating, at its core, is about emotional presence. And in a world that often demands people shrink or conform, that presence is revolutionary. We also can't ignore the layers that many lesbian relationships carry, the racial, cultural, generational, and neurodivergent intersections that influence how people love and how they trust. If you're dating someone from a different background than yours, don't just be tolerant, be invested. Learn about their community. Understand their stories. Because queer love isn't one size fits all, and the more inclusive you are, the stronger your relationships will be. Now, if you're still worried about doing things wrong, breathe. The best partners aren't perfect, they're open. Open to learning. Open to being called in. Open to growing. Lesbian dating, like all forms of love, is a practice, not a performance. So here's your takeaway. Show up with respect. Listen more than you speak. Don't rush to label things that need time to unfold. And most importantly, celebrate the joy. Because for all the challenges, queer love is magical. It's tender. It's real. And in a world that still questions it, loving openly, honestly, and with pride, that's power. Whether you're a lesbian navigating your first serious relationship, someone newly exploring their identity, or a loving partner committed to understanding, this journey is worth it. Dating lesbians in 2025 means understanding that love is evolving, and so must we. So as you close this video, remember, this isn't about being the perfect partner. It's about being the present one. In a time when distractions are everywhere and attention spans are shrinking, your ability to give someone your real, raw, respectful self is the most radical thing of all.